Athletes make tough opponents for politicians, as Donald Trump has been learning, and advocating civil rights in the field has a rich history. It was 50 years ago this week that Tommie Smith and John Carlos raised their fists at the Mexico City Olympics to put the mistreatment of black Americans in front of the whole world. My next guest continues that tradition. Basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, also known for activism and intellect off the court. And in a new essay today, he recounts skipping those Olympics as a protest, teaming up with Muhammad Ali and others to advocate an end to the Vietnam War. And many of today's athletes cite his example and continue the path. You have LeBron James wearing the I Can't Breathe t-shirt, which drew attention to the police strangling an unarmed man in New York, Eric Garner. Or, of course, Colin Kaepernick, who ignited a presidential-level debate over his protests of kneeling during the national anthem.
Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
I'm not sure why it's so hard for so many NFL players to understand why Americans don't want to see the flag and the national anthem disrespected on Sunday, on game day.
You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
We are honored to welcome Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the beat. He started a new auction of his own memorabilia with some of the proceeds going to the Skyhook Foundation, which helps kids in need. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Ari.
You look at this history that you've been involved in and now writing about. What do you see as the legacy and what's important for athletes and fans to do right now?
Well, the legacy is the incredible legacy of the civil rights movement. That's what we're dealing with right now. The problems that Colin Kaepernick was trying to call attention to are the same problems that black Americans were dealing with immediately after the Second World War, when the civil rights movement really took off and gained steam.
And in your new essay, you compare this to '68, which was, of course, a big year for activism in a lot of ways. Reading a little Kareem to Kareem for you to build on, you say, outspoken athletes of today face the same hostility from good people who are just ignorant of the facts, from those who are terrified of the gradual browning of America, and from those who profit from social disparity. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because in this polarized time, I couldn't help but notice in reading that you are definitely clarifying that there are plenty of, as you put it, good people who might have an initial negative reaction, and it seems like you're trying to dialogue with them.
Yeah, I am, because what I don't feel that they understand is the athletes who were taking a knee during the playing of the national anthem were trying to bring attention to a problem. The fact that black Americans are killed unnecessarily at a ridiculous rate. And they were trying to bring attention to that problem. They were not trying to disrespect our country or the flag or our military, but they wanted to call attention to the fact that America is not walking it like it supposedly talks it. And that is what the issue is all about. Right.
And so how do you also square that with the kind of status that some fans and some Americans seem to want to hold athletes, and specifically black athletes, in? And we played some of the clips there, and I think it's a range. But when you hear this idea that athletes somehow should stay out of politics, well, all of us in America are welcome to engage in politics. But as we just showed, there's this rich history. What do you make of that kind of view, or even that kind of discrimination?
I think that's absurd. Bill Bradley certainly didn't pay attention to that edict. Tom McMillan, another former NBA player who's run for office, and had plenty to say about our political situation. The fact that we have a certain profession does not mean that we can't have opinions on very important issues that are being discussed nationally. And, whoever suggested that LeBron keep quiet, they didn't know what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm. And then you have in Donald Trump someone who used to make a big deal out of his relationships with prominent black Americans, certainly prominent celebrity black Americans, and then just totally flipped his message when he went into racist birtherism and then 2016 campaigning. Take a look.
Look at my African American over here. Look at him. Are you the greatest? And we're going to work on our get-getters. What do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump? What do you have to lose? What the hell do you have to lose?
I'd say in contrast to some of the folks you address in your new essay, Donald Trump, according to many civil rights leaders, is not worth dialoguing with, at least at this time. So what do you say to people about that and how to make impact?
Well, we have to do what we can do to change the situation. We have a lot of work to do. We have to register people to vote, and we have to understand what the issues are and appeal to Americans on the basis of the issues that they all hold common. That's just common sense. That's the way the American political system works. And I believe that's how we will get past this moment.
Let me close with some of the good stuff as well. I want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing with your foundation, which sounds really positive. And we also, while we got you here on sports, wanted to know what you think about LeBron going to the Lakers. Could he ever be the top 3 or best ever basketball player? Do you want to weigh in on that long-running debate?
Well, I'm really thrilled that LeBron is coming here to Los Angeles to play. He brings a whole lot to the table, not just on the court, off the court, his leadership. And I'm sure that he's going to be a very positive addition to the Laker team. But, you know, as far as my auction is concerned, I'm working with Golden Auctions. The auction stops on October 27th. And people want to know about how they can get a piece of my career. They can go to goldenauctions.com. and they can find out all about it.
That's fantastic. I only wish I got to have you here in person, but I know you got a busy schedule, and I appreciate you making time for us out in California, Kareem.
Well, anytime, Ari, it's great to see you, and continued success with your show.
Thank you, sir. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and we'll mention the new book, Mycroft and Sherlock, also available in stores. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.